Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys!
This has to be one of the most infamous lines from the Lord of the Rings films. Not only is it highly quotable, but it has sparked some semi-tongue-in-cheek ponderings of how orcs know what a menu is. And does it imply there are restaurants in Mordor? But this somewhat comedic moment that also shows the brutality of orcs to their own kind brings about a deeper question. Were orcs actually cannibalistic? Today on Nerd of the Rings, we aim to answer this very question. To do so, we'll dive not only into the Lord of the Rings, but also some of Tolkien's essays from his later life. While this movie moment doesn't exist in the books, it's close to this time that we get our most direct mention of orc cannibalism. However, it's in a much different light. It comes after Merry and Pippin have been taken captive by the orcs, and the leaders begin to bicker with one another.
"Aye, we must stick together,"
growled Ugluk.
"I don't trust you, little swine. You've no guts outside your own sties. But for us, you'd all have run away. We are the fighting Uruk-hai. We slew the great warrior. We took the prisoners. We are the servants of Saruman the Wise, the White Hand, the hand that gives us man's flesh to eat. We came out of Isengard and led you here, and we shall lead you back by the way we choose. I am Ugluk. I have spoken."
"You have spoken more than enough, Ugluk,"
sneered an evil voice.
"I wonder how they would like it in Lugbert's. They might think Ugluk's shoulders need relieving of a swollen head. They might ask where his strange ideas came from. Did they come from Saruman, perhaps? Who does he think he is, setting up on his own with his filthy white badges? They might agree with me, with Grishnákh, their trusted messenger. And I, Grishnákh, say this: Saruman is a fool, and a dirty, treacherous fool. But the great eye is on him. Swine, is it? How do you folk like being called swine by the muckrakers of a dirty little wizard? It's orc flesh they eat, I'll warrant."
We see this exchange bring about an immediate reaction of yells in orc speech and the clash of weapons. While there's a lot of insults being thrown around, it's clear that Grishnákh's final line, that Saruman's orcs have probably been eating orc flesh, is meant as an insult. While eating their enemies is seen not only as acceptable but desirable, eating the flesh of their own kind is clearly neither. That being said, this doesn't apparently stop orcs from threatening each other, as we later see in an exchange between Gorbag and Shagrat as they discover Frodo, who had been presumed dead by Sam.
"You'll find that difficult," laughed Gorbag. "He's nothing but carrion now. What Lugberts will do with such stuff I can't guess. He might as well go to the pot." "You fool," snarled Shagrat. "You've been talking very clever, but there's a lot you don't know, though most other folk do. You'll be for the pot, or for Shelob, if you don't take care. Carrion, is that all you know of her ladyship? When she binds with cords, she's after meat. She doesn't eat dead meat, nor suck cold blood. This fellow isn't dead."
Here we see Shagrat threaten throwing Gorbag in the pot for his fellow orcs to eat. Whether this was a threat that had previously been carried out or just an idle one, we can't say for certain. We do know, however, that orcs are by nature very cruel creatures. In his essay, Myths Transformed, Tolkien would say, "They were indeed so corrupted that they were pitiless, and there was no cruelty or wickedness that they would not commit. But this was the corruption of independent wills, and they took pleasure in their deeds. They were capable of acting on their own, doing evil deeds unbidden for their own sport." Clearly, orcs did some pretty horrific things. As Tolkien would say in the very same essay found in the book Morgoth's Ring, Few orcs ever surrendered in the Elder Days, and at no time would any orc treat with any elf. For one thing Morgoth had achieved was to convince the orcs, beyond refutation, that the elves were crueler than themselves, taking captives only for amusement, or to eat them, as the orcs would do at need. And here we see the great ironies of the orcs. They believed that elves would capture orcs for cruel amusement and would eat them. In reality, it is only the orcs who were known to do these things. It's worth noting that Tolkien says elves were not always above killing orcs who wished to surrender, but the idea of tormenting orcs for fun or eating them never comes up. Instead, we see the cruelty of orcs on display time and again, slaughtering and or eating their prisoners. In Tom Shippey's book, Roots and Branches, a collection of some of his phenomenal essays, the Tolkien scholar points out how orcs often talk about others with a sense of superiority when it comes to things they themselves are guilty of. And often we find these mere sentences apart from one another. In one example, Shippey points us back to the interaction between Gorbag and Shagrat.
The big fellow with a sharp sword doesn't seem to have thought him worth much anyhow. Just left him lying. Regular elvish trick.
Shippey then observes, there's no mistaking the disapproval in Gorbag's last 3 words. Like to other characters in The Lord of the Rings, not all of them on the side of Sauron, elvish to him is pejorative. It is clear that he regards abandoning one's comrades as contemptible, and also a characteristic of the other side. And yet, only a page later, it is exactly what characterizes his own side. Shagrat responds to Gorbag's argument by pointing out, there's a lot you don't know. And one of the things the Morgul captain does not know is that a sting from Shelob is not necessarily fatal.
She's got more than one poison. When she's hunting, she gives 'em a dab in the neck, and they go limp as a boned fish. And then she has her way with them. Do you remember old Ulfthak? We lost him for days. Then we found him in a corner. Hanging up he was, but he was wide awake and glaring. How we laughed. She'd forgotten him maybe, but we didn't touch him. No good interfering with her.
Shippey then says, regular orcish trick, one might say, to abandon one's comrade to a particularly horrible and fully conscious death. And furthermore, to laugh about it, and expect the laughter to be shared. It might be argued that it is one orc who condemns desertion and the other who practices it, but in this respect, at least Shagrat and Gorbag seem to be of one mind. Shagrat sees nothing wrong with Gorbag's use of Elvish, and Gorbag has no quarrel with Shagrat's sense of humor. So where does this leave us on the topic of orc cannibalism? The reality of the situation we see in the examples Shippey points out is that orcs seem to have a moral code, until they don't. They talk of their distaste for dishonorable things, but then tend to do those exact things themselves. The filthy elves would pull some trick and leave one of their friends for dead. How horrid! And yet, that immediately calls to mind how the orcs did the exact same thing with full knowledge of what would happen to their comrade. And then they would laugh about it. Sam overhears Shagrat and Gorbag talk about escaping the war with a few trusty lads and setting up somewhere on their own with no big bosses around. Like old times. What great friends these guys must be. Friends who mere pages later are stabbing and attempting to kill one another, with Shagrat ultimately killing Gorbag in the Battle of Cirith Ungol, where orcs fought against other orcs. In the end, we cannot say with 100% certainty whether orcs would or would not eat one another in a situation like the one in the Two Towers film. We get hints that this would be seen as repulsive to their kind, but it's abundantly clear that not only are orcs capable of great atrocities, but they have an almost comical ability to do the exact things they find dishonorable. Personally, I would not be the least bit surprised if placed in a situation where it would be necessary, or even just convenient. Orcs would indeed eat one another. But what do you think? Is orc flesh on the menu for orcs? Let me know in the comments. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. CCDC Red Team, Evil Chameleon, Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Freya Firestar, Chris and Meg Q, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Kiara Berlin, Z and N, Evely, Kia, Landry Quinn Walker, Ice Glazer, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.